Hi, today I'm going to be doing some real-time drawing, which is kind of what I planned these videos to be anyway. I'm by no means a teacher, so these aren't tutorials, these are just me sharing how I go about drawing really. Although I will try and share a few things along the way that I've learned or picked up. But it's going to be some more drawings from imagination, which is typically what I'm planned to do with these videos. Just have a bit of time doodling. And these are the first drawings of the day, so they're going to be shapes. I will, if we've got time, draw a few faces as well, maybe even a full figure, but we'll see. So I'm drawing these shapes roughly in perspective. I will by all means make mistakes. So typically when I draw shapes, I'm not thinking too much about perspective, but something I'm trying to be a bit more aware of and practice, sort of push my abilities a little bit. It is perspective. It's the one thing that I really want to nail down this year. But I'm at a stage where I'm just sort of pushing things, seeing what I can get away with. I have read up a little bit on perspective. I have been learning the basics, let's say, over the last couple of years. Something I dip in and out of every now and again. But yeah, I'm still feel pretty new to it all. But I've got into the habit of doing these little scenes where I just do a collection of shapes coming towards me, I suppose. Sounds a bit terrifying. And I've been trying to vary up like the angle, so this one's a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more one point perspective. Now, like I say, this isn't a tutorial, this is me just going through some of my practice routines, the things that I like to practice. If you'd like me to talk a little bit more about perspective, like I say, I'm not going to go into the theory in this video, but I'll be happy to try. Like I say, it's a subject that I'm by no means a master of, and I'm probably making a lot of mistakes. So they're all quite blocky at the minute. Let's do semicircle type thing. We'll do some little cubes. I might not go super in depth with this. Move on some faces in a sec, but I'll try and fill half of this page up with these. A little bit wonky there. It's going to be trailing off. Triangle. Not one of them yet. Because typically, I wonder if I can get my words out. I was drawing shapes just sort of willy-nilly. Not thinking too much about perspective, but obviously, because they were 3D shapes, they're always going to have an element of that, but I was being fast and loose with things, just in order to learn how to actually draw shapes. Do it at an angle, because everything's a little bit straight at the minute, isn't it? Well, this is typically how I like to learn things, through trying things out before really knowing too much. Like I say, I have read up on perspective. I know the rules to some degree, but I'm by no means come on, what's the word? Well versed? I don't know. If you don't already know, these are pretty very much unscripted, and a lot of the time I don't really know what I'm talking about. But anyway. But yeah, I like to just go at things with a little knowledge, trial and error a few things, figure things out, then go back and read up some more, try again, make mistakes, read up, and it's that cycle. I have talked about this sort of thing before, but I think until you've actually had a go, you know a little bit about your own knowledge, it's then the time. But once you know where you're at, you can fill in the gaps and try and figure out where you're going wrong. And you're always going to be going wrong somewhere. It's drawing, like with any subject, you're never really going to fully master it. It's best to see yourself as a student always and be pushing yourself, I think. So yeah, that's pretty rough. It's not perfect. I think this probably wants to be a little bit more up there, but it's me pushing myself just enough to learn enough from. I can see my mistakes, so then the next time I do it, I'll be a little bit more aware. So that's kind of my approach to this sort of thing. Some people like to read and practice from a book. I'm all for that, but because I'm dyslexic, that doesn't really work for me. I have to just trial and error a lot of things. And I'll take what I can from bits and pieces that I've learned along the way. But when people ask me about what book, for me to suggest a book, I don't really read any. There's the odd time I've watched things on YouTube, or try to look up things on blog posts, Pinterest or whatever. But typically I try and get a groundwork of knowledge and then build it up myself through my own sort of means. And I think it develops, it's probably the longest route to go down, but you'll develop more of a style, I suppose. But anyway, this is just my approach. It's probably very wrong, but it might be useful to someone, because not everyone learns the same way. And I'm more prepared to be quite messy with things. even though this looks quite neat, it never started off that neat. I've been drawing shapes for years. I'm only just now trying to put them all on the same perspective plane. Or I've dabbled with it in the past, but anyway, let's move on to faces. A little bit more interesting, maybe. So with faces, it's kind of a similar thing for me in that I'm quite trial and error with it. Now, my first few faces of the day are never usually the best. I think I've already gone a little bit too small, yeah, but we'll go anyway. I'm sure I'll manage a decent one. So, again, there's proportions you can learn. I can't remember them. So it's not really that useful to a beginner, I suppose. But there's plenty of resources out there. Another approach would be to learn each individual facial feature to the point where you can rotate it, or even just to study, have a page of studies. Help me with ears. I kind of know how an ear is meant to be now. So that's another approach. You could go at it like that. And it doesn't even have to be facial features. It could be the shape of the human head, which I might butcher, but so like that, the way that it's sort of subtle slope that goes down. Then you've got the cavity of the eye socket, usually I'm hoping you can see that. There we go. Subtle slope down to the brow, the eye socket. The nose roughly starts in the centre of that socket. Cheekbones come down. Typically the mouth rested is a bit grumpy. Chin. Here. And depending on the person's face, if there's like a masculine and a feminine kind of face shape. It all depends on the skull. I mean, it's different for everyone, of course. And the eyes. But yeah, what I was trying to get with that is you could learn how to do the face shape first. That could be, and then maybe do that from a different angle. So just do the silhouette of the face. And like I say, everyone's face is different, so that does change. I think it's been so long since I've looked at anything like that, but I think typically you want to do, the mouth wants to be like there, with the brow, but to be honest, a lot of those things don't really hold up if you actually start drawing faces from photos or from life. They're very much a rough guide. You see all these, things with lines, the Loomis, which again I don't really know very well because I've never really used it and never really liked it. Because it works to a degree, and if you're wanting to create something that's very like a close representation of someone's face, like a proper portrait, it works beautifully. But I'm not really so interested in that. I'm more interested in drawing faces from imagination, just doodling characters and whatnot. And when it comes to that, I kind of think it's more fun to exaggerate some of those facial proportions and whatnot. So this isn't me saying don't learn Loomis, don't learn the proportions of the face. It's very important, but it's not the only way to do it. And it's never served me all that well. I'll try and do one from this side. I kind of struggle with doing faces from this side more than doing them from there. And as far as faces go, that's okay. The eyes are a bit too big for my liking. There's all these little things that if you start picking apart your own drawings, so don't be too harsh on yourself, but if you then look at an actual person's face, you'll notice that eyes aren't typically as big as you might draw them. Certain angles are probably greater, like that brow probably could have done with being a little bit more pronounced. But again, it all depends on the person's face. That's kind of the fun of it. Now this face seems a little bit too big for me for the head. But again, it's just a sketch, it's just a warm-up. I've done the lips a bit weird, I don't typically do that. I mean, that's the other thing to say, maybe it's different drawing in front of a camera that you know is recording than it is just relaxing. I am overthinking things a little bit. So but yeah, that's typically how I go about it. So things start a bit wobbly at first, like that. Then maybe I'll try and do something a little bit more confident. We'll do a face from the front, I think. Fringe. Already not sure about this one, but we'll keep going. It's all practice. I keep falling back into bad habits. Some of these faces, which is why it's useful to warm up a little bit. So bad habit for me is eyes are a little bit big. There's not enough consideration when it comes to certain curves. Try something else. I'll try and explain what I mean. Some eyebrows, there's a decent curve there. And this is me trying to draw like a semi-realistic face. I mean, if I was just drawing like silly faces, I don't really worry about that sort of thing, but because I'm trying to warm up, because my aim is to create something a little bit more realistic, that's when I start to criticise myself a little bit, because I know I can do a little bit better. The time, in terms of how long I'm spending on each drawing, is a big thing, because I've rushed some of these. I know I was rushing. This one I'm taking my time a little bit more, and it has come out a little bit better. But yeah, there's all these subtle little curves, the eyebrow curve, the nostril, that. And they're the things I try and remember when I'm doing something from a reference. just like if something hasn't worked, you try to remember the things that do work and the things that go into making a face. Now, it's a bit more of a masculine face, so the jaw, a bit more square, let's say. Let's say that's different for everyone. But it's kind of useful to know some of those things as well in terms of anatomy. It means you can be a bit more playful. Right, so we'll leave faces there. I'll just do another 5 minutes. Hopefully this isn't overly tedious. I'm going to try and do some figures. Now, this is something that I'm not as confident with. It's something I've been working towards over the last month or so. Although I have been, once again, I think I sound like a broken record, we are in the process of moving house, which is why there was no drawing video last week. Had some people come around to look at the house, so we were getting ready for that. And had some commissions on, which is always very nice. So the week just sort of escaped me. But I plan to do 2 videos this week, 2 drawing videos to make up for it. So if you've made it this far, by all means, let me know what you'd like to see me draw. As I keep saying, these aren't your typical tutorials, but I will try and share my approach if it's useful. And like I say, it's useful to me, and I have tried learning things a traditional way, but it's not always favourable for the way that I like to learn, and maybe you're like me. You find traditional styles of teaching a little bit lackluster or confusing. Maybe this approach of just trying things out, doing things, being observant, that's one of the biggest things. Be observant of the whole, but also of subtle details. Now, this is a very static, stiff pose. I have tried to be a little bit more dynamic in some of my other practices, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to stick to these very stilted, if that's the right word. So, yeah, then we've got a figure. I don't know if everything's in proportion or not, but much like the faces, sometimes that can fluctuate a lot. But yeah, I feel like the legs are a little bit on the shorter side. But again, some people have short legs, so it's fine. So you've got to let yourself, or I typically try and let myself off the hook a little bit when it comes to these sort of things. Alright, we'll try and do a more masculine type of body. I was going to do it from the front, but it looks like it's going to be another 3/4. When you're doing things a bit small, keep the details minimum. That's something I keep telling myself. That's a better mouth. So when it came to some of these mouths, they were all very straight, but usually mouths are a bit more like that. That's the under bit of the lip. Again, that's something I'm always having to tell myself. I mean, you could say they've got some sort of smirk. So I feel like this is a constant battle of reminding myself certain things. And this is why I struggle a little bit when I've not drawn much for a couple of days. Because if I can keep to a routine, I'd seem to retain that information a little bit better, and I start off, it becomes more of an instinctual thing. I start off with that information already in my mind, and that's when the practice really works. That's when it's starting to seep in a little bit. If I've not drawn for a week, I'm then having to refresh everything I've done up to that point. So this is quite a well-gymmed person. Something I definitely want to get a bit more into, like more variety in body type. Because personally I'm not so interested in drawing, like these are both quite athletic bodies, but I'm more interested in drawing more realistic, more varied bodies. There's nothing wrong with these types of bodies, that's not what I'm saying, but I think it'd be fun to draw, because in terms of drawing characters, you know, it's more fun to play around with body types, body shapes. Can say a lot about a character, be that if they're a realistic character or a cartoon. You know, and maybe that feeds a little bit too much into stereotypes or whatever, but you know, you can use them for when you're humanising an animal, let's say, for a particular character or whatever, you know, it feeds into that a little bit as well. But, you know, just for the sake of being realistic as well, you know, everyone's body's so different. There's all these, you know, rules in terms of anatomy and stuff, and a lot of them are true, a lot of them are useful, but it's those subtleties that can make something look that much more realistic or more characterful. Those differences, if everyone sort of looks, you know, in terms of the body size, shape, whatever, all looks the same, like your Marvel characters or whatever, you know, it all, well, like I say, it all starts to look the same, doesn't it? So, right, I'll do one more. I might try and do a clothed person. Again, going a little bit 3/4. I'll try and bring the face over a bit. I might do a beard for fun. It's a little bit scratchy, but that's fine. And say these are just studies. These are like little warm-ups that I might do. I don't do these sort of things every day. I probably should. And then once I've done these things, I then might move on to actually studying. So then seeing where I've gone wrong. Try and give him a bit more of a pose as well. Oh, this is going to be clothed, isn't it? I'll add a vest. So, barely clothed. him a pose. But in terms of memorising things like poses, this is me drawing, doing lots of gesture drawing, like every day for years, and it's still not perfect. This is through learning some of the basics of anatomy, so proportion of limbs, which might be a little bit off in this particular thing, I don't know. Alright, we'll tuck that in. And we'll give him a belt. I should have made him, given him a few more things to do with his legs. They're just going to be straight down, I think. A little bit dull, but jeans on there. Hopefully you're seeing all of this. The tripod thing that I'm using does actually cover up the screen, so it's, if you ever can't see what I'm doing, I am trying. Actually looks a little bit like my granddad, which is funny. And then some kind of shoe. Now shoes, I am awful at drawing, typically. It's definitely something, it's on my list of things to practice. But yeah, he's a little bit squat, his head's too big, but like I say, it's the first clove figure of the day. I don't know if I'm going to fit another one on there. I'll tell you what, we'll leave it there because I plan to do another one of these videos on Thursday. So, like I say, these videos, if you've watched one before you'll already know, but if you've made it this far, they're very off the cuff. But I kind of prefer that, a little bit more conversational. But yeah, if you've made it this far, a like would be really appreciated. If you've got anything that you'd like to ask me, or that you'd like to see me draw on Thursday, or, you know, in sometime in the near future, let me know in the comments. And a subscribe would, of course, be very nice if you were willing to go down that route and support me in that way. If you happen to use this video in your studies, please let me know via Instagram. I would love to see them. I'll happily share anything that is done through anything that I do. You know, if it's inspired you in any way, I'll support you best I can. And yeah, we'll leave it there. I'll see you on Thursday, and be good to yourself. Toodaloo.